Day, much to the chagrin of parents in the 1950s. Now, my parents were in that in-between stage. They weren't parents of teenagers in the 50s, but they were a little too old to be part of that beat generation. You know, my dad had already been in the military, gone to war. He never saw enough combat action film, but he was a gunner's mate on a naval vessel and trained to kill people if necessary. So, very different attitude than the people who'd just been to high school, maybe out of school a year or two when all that stuff started. So they missed all that. They had to wait until I was a teenager in the 70s to have to deal with teenagers. Are we on? We're live?
Yeah, we were live when I
Oh,
told
okay.
you we were live.
Okay. Welcome, everyone, to Monday night in Mount Shasta. And today was a good day to verify the old adage that if you don't like the weather here, wait 5 minutes. And you'll have 3 more options over that time. We had clear sunny weather all the way up to driving snow and hail and everything in between, all in like the space of a half hour today. So we're here. This is the Toltec Discussions with Golden Eagle, and I am here to talk about changing the world with consciousness. That's the secret weapon of the Toltecs, so shh, don't tell anybody. That we can change the world with consciousness. Couple of quick announcements. The 23rd is the Spiritual Essentials class. Outstanding for finding a path, refining your path, getting a compressed version of the 25 years it individually took each of Bonnie and I to figure out legitimate spiritual stuff from what we call the fluffy feel-good stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with feeling good, it's just if that's where you start and end your spiritual search, you're not going to go very far. So that's coming up on the 23rd, very reasonable price. Are we feeding them that day? I think we are, aren't we?
Yeah, light lunch.
Okay.
And I think the big thing to say about it is this is a really good class to get anyone who wants to get questions answered about the various different legitimate spiritual paths, and to get kind of the hearsay and the mythology out of fact from fiction, basically.
Yeah, it's how to dispel with urban legends, how to learn the legitimate ones from the less than legitimate.
Yeah, I could testify that it's a good course.
Oh, quick, switch cameras and let's get her testifying on camera.
Testifying. She's going to testify right here in front of everyone. Okay, go for it.
Spiritual Essentials is a fantastic class to take. Teaches you all sorts of exercises and how to find a spiritual teacher, for instance, and higher consciousness.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And by finding a spiritual teacher, I'm not just selling me. I'll be the first in line of probably a very long line to tell you that me as your teacher and the spiritual path I teach is not for everybody. And there's a lot of people who we've helped with that Spiritual Essentials course who are not our students. And I consider it part of my service. I wish that 25 or 30 years ago I'd had somebody saying, being the traffic cop of all those spiritual paths that are out there, saying, This one's good for this, it's not so good for that. This one's great if you have a mind that works this way, not so good if your mind works that way. So that would have been very, very helpful to me. And through trial and error and dogged, stubborn perseverance to not take no for an answer, I found my legitimate path. Bonnie found hers. Parts of our paths overlap. But I still have things I do independently, as does she, as it should be. So, yeah, come. Bring your friends. This is a good one. And hopefully you will get benefit as most of the other people who've attended it have. Question?
Maria has requested that it gets videotaped. I don't know if we can do it live and, get all that worked out. We were going to look into all of that. So
Okay. I believe that one might be difficult to videotape or to broadcast live, but I will commit to videotaping it.
Okay.
I think we can manage that.
Okay.
The only slightly challenging thing, Maria, is there's portions of that class I use the computer for PowerPoint and portions where I don't. So I'll have to practice to make sure I can record the whole thing whether I'm using PowerPoint or not. But I think I can. Another question.
Do you have flyers so we can start?
Yes, we have flyers, and I was just asked today to drop some off at Soul Connection, so I will do that tomorrow.
We need to put the new cartridge in, otherwise I could give it to you tonight. But
Yeah, okay.
but they were sent to you in the email. There should be a flyer attached to the announcement that was sent to you. So
Yeah, but I have
I
a
don't
cell
have a
phone.
printer.
well, but you can still forward that on to people. In other
Oh,
words,
yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, but I wanted to go around like Berryville and.
Well, we don't necessarily. If we wanted, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we've learned in this greater geographical area, there's places where it's useful to put flyers and places where it is not. So before you put it anywhere, ask Bonnie and she'll
Yeah,
she'll save you some time and anguish.
It always works best if it's a personal invitation. We don't need to advertise to the public right now because we don't.
Okay.
Next month, this is February now, we're on the 4th day thereof. Next month we have, I think right at the end of the month, an Ikadwa Level 1 class. On the 30th?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Well, I don't have my calendar.
Okay, don't worry about it. It's on the website. I just want to get these reminders out there. So a lot of you who tune in regularly may have friends who are interested. So these are good times to get them going. In this Change the World Consciousness work, we've been doing for some months a meditation. It's by invitation to anyone who has a willingness to help humanity. If you're not willing to help humanity, you probably won't be interested in this activity. And it's a meditation that involves, it works better with the Ikadwa, but it still works without it. And this is the one where we envision holding the earth between our hands, visualizing the pink glow of the human collective consciousness fields around it, and then we were sending those messages. Everybody remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
You were invited to do that at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific time. And so there's now a slight change in the way of the next step for this activity. Start the same, get in your favorite meditative posture. Expand your fields until you're holding the planet between your hands. If you have the Ikadwa, send the Ikadwa. And the 3 mantras, which are it's a slight difference, are we are all one. Love is the answer. and peace now. And the big change is, as you're sending energy to the pink consciousness field around the planet, you're visualizing that, you're looking at it in the astral, however that works for you. Change the color of that field from pink to glowing, brilliant white. The reason being, we're trying to alter the consciousness field and its frequency significantly now. The message is out there. We've received feedback from on high, as well as seen things in the world that lead us to believe we're having an effect, and so it's time for the next step. And that is to change that consciousness field to the most brilliant, glowing white light that you can. And it may be difficult to change at first. So just keep doing it. You don't have to sit there for 8 hours, because you might not even get it to change completely in 8 hours. But just keep sending and sending and sending it. And more people doing it, especially at the same moment, over time, it will change. So that's something a little new. And that's the frequency that we want out there right now, is that glowing, brilliant white. Any questions?
I have the calendar pulled out.
Oh, okay.
So there is a shamanic arts training on Saturday the 23rd for students in Mount Shasta, and you'll get more information about that. That is March 23rd. And then the Akadua Level 1 course is on March 30th. And the Akadua Level 2 course is on April 27th.
Okay.
So you have access to that on the akadua.com website under calendars of events. And it's also been sent to you in an email, an e-calendar.
Okay. So those classes, not the Shamanic Arts Day, but the Spiritual Essentials and the Akadua Level 1 are open to anyone. The Akadua Level 2 is open to anyone who has a Level 1 or above. And anyone at any level of the Akadua who has a desire to repeat that class just to get additional training, such as if you're trying to get yourself ready to go out in the world and teach Akadua classes of your own. Very nominal fee. Talk to Bonnie. It's minuscule to come and retake a class that you've already had. Any questions on that? Calendar stuff. Okay. So one of the themes you've been hearing me talk about these last couple of months is that it is time to kick it up a notch, right? If you have been coming and or watching these tapes later and you don't remember hearing that, I invite you to go back and rewatch them with more attention, because I've said it a lot. The reason I've said it a lot is because there's a lot happening in the world. Humanity is changing, the world is changing, the energy is changing, and we're endeavoring to guide humanity and its consciousness into a path more consistent with the growth and upscaling of our collective consciousness frequency into a realm of spiritual freedom and transcendence for the whole of humanity. That's it, really. Just that. So, any questions? You ready to go out and do that?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, are you journaling every day?
Yes.
Even if you're not, pretend you are, and smile and nod and
Uh-huh.
humor me and say, "Oh yeah, of course, Golden Eagle, I'm journaling every day." Yeah. Yeah. These little things I'm about to remind you of, like journaling, they seem trivial. But just like in chess, what we say is people don't understand pawns in chess. They don't understand why you can't just throw them away because your other pieces rely on a pawn structure for their defense. It's impossible to defend your king without pawns, for instance. If you can't defend it with pawns, you have to defend it with pieces, and then you've got no pieces to go on attack. And the biggest reason why people underestimate pawns is what happens when you get your pawn all the way down to the end of the chessboard, the other end from where you start. Do you remember?
Last time I
You
played.
get a piece back, don't you?
Right.
Which one?
Like the queen, I think.
Anyone you
Yeah.
want. Yeah.
You can, when you get your pawn all the way to the end, to the 8th rank, you can have it become any piece you want except the king. Now you don't want to leave it as a pawn because pawns can't back up. But you can make it a rook, you could make it a knight, you could make it a bishop, but why? When you can make it a queen, the most powerful piece on the board. I've actually played a game where I had 3 queens. Not that I needed them to win,
How fun.
but it was more like to see if I could do it. Because I was way ahead and I deliberately didn't defeat the other person just to get that 3rd queen for the sake of having it. Every pawn, every little teeny weakest piece on the board has the potential for transformation into a queen. The most powerful piece on the board. If you play the game right. So all these little teeny trivial things like journaling, writing your dreams down every day, right? Practicing your concentration exercises, practicing the dreamer stare in front of the mirror, all these other things that we've taught. Powerful. It's part of your foundation. So when you're doing all that, if you recall, there's very few requirements for those of you who are students, and those who are not students who may be watching this. You may find a lot of useful material here, even if you're not a student. But for those of you who are, there's actually very few requirements, the number one being show up and engage. And when you go home, take what we've tried to share with you and use it. Because it works. This formula that I am sharing and teaching is old. Ancient old. And it works if you engage with it. So some of the few requirements are to read books. How many?
4.
4. So,
Unless you count 1984.
yeah,
That's
That's
fine.
extra.
that would be 5.
Extracurricular. That's
I would have
extra
brought that
credit
out to
rating.
do a show and tell, but I only have 1984 in a PDF on my computer. So it's right there. Can't you see?
Yeah, exactly.
It's right in that computer.
It's glowing red.
You should have told
The-
me I have it at home.
Nah, it's not important. I just wanted to do a little show and tell and reminder. So, of the first four, the first four books that are required, and there's never going to be any more that are absolutely positively required. There may be many I recommend, and there may be many I prescribe for a specific individual, for a specific purpose. But these are the four that are required for everyone. And this one is an old one. It's written by Dion Fortune, obviously a pen name, published middle, early last century. It's called The Training and Work of an Initiate. So Dion Fortune sounds way more cool. That's her magical name that she adopted than Violet Firth,
Yeah, I like the Dion.
which was her real legal name. And the training and work of an initiate describes the life you will lead and the effort required if you're going to pursue an esoteric path, meaning a path of higher spirituality. A companion book to it that she had intended to be published all together, and later editions they were. I don't know, is that readable?
Push it forward for a minute.
How's that?
That's good.
Okay,
Y'all see that?
all right. Esoteric orders and their work is kind of like the other side of the coin of this one, so they should really kind of be like this, and you go from one to the other, and it doesn't really matter which order you go in. This tells you what the heck do people who are doing esoteric work really mean when we say esoteric work and an esoteric order, which really means a school. It's a school where a teacher has higher plane connections and authority to teach a certain body of material. I'm teaching primarily the Toltec work and pulling in other pieces that I'm trained or initiated in when necessary to support the Toltec work. I'm not teaching stuff I don't know. Coyote, my teacher, is initiated into yoga systems, so he teaches a lot of yoga. He's got a class coming up, I don't even remember when, soon, that he calls, it's about Bhakti Yoga, which is a major step in the yoga, overall yoga system. He calls it Bhakti the Future. Obviously, a play on the movie Back to the Future. And I like it. It's a great name. And it would be a great class if I hadn't already been booked for 4 months past when that class is. So I might get a chance to take his Bhakti the Future class again. So I'm not teaching Bhakti Yoga because I'm not formally trained nor certified nor initiated in that system. So I teach what I know. Some of you who are at the level 4 class saw me teaching some rocket science and orbital mechanics as examples of how to apply the Toltec work. So I teach what I know.
And astronomy,
Oh, a little bit of that. We threw that in too. That was always fun.
especially with lunar eclipse.
Lunar eclipse. It's not often you get to do a level 4 class while a total lunar eclipse is going on. This is the book called The Teachings of a Toltec Survivor by some guy named Coyote the Blind. That will be published again in not hardcover, a paper version soon. There's been a Kindle version. This version is better than Kindle, in my opinion.
E.K. Gold had some of those books down there.
Well, he has the Dreaming book because he's publishing it now. He's publishing.
No, I thought he had that one.
Oh,
Not,
never
it,
seen
I
it.
doubt he had it for sale. He may have had it.
It was displayed.
No, I didn't see it when we were there. You're talking about when we were just down
Yeah.
there. I didn't see it. So that doesn't mean anything. There's probably a lot of books they have that I didn't
Right,
see. And I may not have been drawn to it because I already have it.
right.
I found the Bhakti Bhakti the Future Intensive in Moreno Valley is February 15th through February 17th. I thought it
Okay,
was a
so
whole
that's less than 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested, I personally have survived every one of Coyote's classes I've attended.
week.
I can't say that for everyone else who's ever taken his classes. I've seen more than one literally run away screaming in the middle of the classes. So if you're going to drive 650 miles to take a class from Coyote, you better make sure you're committed. It's like the pig and the chicken, right? For breakfast. Ham and eggs, bacon, egg breakfast.
Mm.
The chicken's involved, but the pig is committed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to go 650 miles, make sure you're committed. Coyote's book, like I said, we did some work late last year. They got involved in buying a new property, and so all that money we raised last year to help them secure the land for the medicine wheel for the future. It worked. It's just a different piece of land. That's in the long run going to be better, and I think in probably a better location and with better capabilities for the work they want to do. It sounds like. So Coyote's book will, now that that's out of the way, will hopefully be, they'll finish that process of getting it up. Probably, well, it used to be called Create Space. Now Amazon changed the name to Kindle Direct Publishing, even if it's not going to be a Kindle book. It's a corporation. There's no logic there. Don't worry about why they did that. So they'll have that up soon, and then you'll be able to buy more hard copies. And does either of you have one of our 2 hard
I do.
copies? Okay. You finished it, right? And you have one now. Okay, so out of these 4 books, for the people who are students, unless you've joined late last year or this year to commit to be a formal student, you should already be done with all 4 books, I'm hoping. If not, please get that done. And I'll know you're done when you submit a report on what you got out of each book. I'm not looking for a doctoral thesis. I know what a doctoral thesis is. I wrote one once, and it got published in a journal, not just by the school in the doctoral thesis files that nobody ever looks at.
Oh,
It was
how cool.
published in a journal. So I know what a doctoral thesis is. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for enough evidence when you write me your report. There's no minimum length required. There's no maximum length that you're limited to. I want to see enough that A, you read it, and B, you got some part of the correct message from these books. Coyote's talks about some of the ancient history of esoteric orders and schools, and specifically with a Toltec flair. It's really hard to describe his book. So read it.
Can I
yourself.
try since I was there?
Sure, go ahead. You got to get on the camera though.
I know. All right. Hold on.
Quick, his eyes are bulging.
He's holding.
Okay, so what I'd like to say about Coyote's book is that it is written in a very different style. It's a transcript of an actual 3-month-long class. So each chapter is a different class that we met with him, and every class will have, or every chapter then will have generally some type of an exercise in there. So each class is a different vibration. When you're in there, there's information that may or may not be way over your head, but realize you're getting it on some type of level. And kind of just plow through the book the first time. You could easily get hung up on each chapter trying to understand every single thing that you just downloaded. But I think it's important to realize that you've got it on a higher level. At least do the exercise, even just one day, do the exercise so that you kind of get the concept of why the exercise was given and then get through the rest of the chapters. But that said, I went through the class, I was there. If you see questions by B, that's me, Bonnie.
And you admitting that publicly?
Well, yes.
Oh, I thought we trained you better than that.
And so, having been through the class and having actually been, of some assistance in the publication of the book at the time after the class, it's still difficult for me to read the whole book cover to cover without stopping and really needing to be in each one of those chambers and really understand what was being downloaded. So this is a book that people have got high vibration off of just by sleeping with it under their pillow. So don't get caught up on whether you get all the nuances of it or not. Realize that it's speaking to your higher self.
It's pretty profound.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And so what I would say too is to realize is exactly what Coyote says the book is about, and that is to teach you how to wake up and to really understand that even though we think we're awake or we think we're more awake than everybody else, every one of us will need to go to sleep. So in other words, to teach us how to be awake, he teaches us how to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's that. If you think about that through each one of these chapters, that's the overriding idea. It can be a really powerful book, something that you want to read over and over and over again. So when it is available again, I would be sure and get a copy for your library.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. So, with respect to the Toltec lineage, specifically this branch of the Toltec lineage, which goes back from me to Coyote, to Cachora's father, and points beyond mother, who were both initiated, and points beyond, back thousands of years. Coyote has added a tremendous amount to this lineage. Cachora has added a different amount to the lineage. I am starting to add a different flavor to the. Every teacher adds something to this lineage and something to the Akadwa, and so it's both a privilege to do that as well as a duty to do that. And so Coyote's book, as far as understanding and tapping into the energy current of this lineage and using it for your own transformation, that's important reading. It's Coyote's book. That's why it's required in this lineage. The next one, if I had to pick my the teacher after Coyote who's been most influential for me, it would be E.J. Gold, who you folks got to meet now. You know who I'm talking about.
I can second that.
And this is the book of his, and he's written voluminously over the last, at least 50 years. The Human Biological Machine as a Transformational Apparatus. So this one, besides the title being a mouthful, this is kind of EJ's version of how to wake up by realizing you're still asleep. And talking about the fact that this really goes to emphasize the fact that we are not our body. We are an essential being that has a body temporarily. Human evolution is being guided and aided so that we develop nervous system capabilities for better links to our energy bodies, which in turn develop better links to higher energy bodies, and so on, to be able to bring down a greater percentage of divine knowledge here into the physical so that we can do things here that cannot be done from the higher, purely energetic realms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that I just went.
You just got it. Okay. My work here is done.
You can retire now.
No, I wish that were true.
No, you don't. You don't want to retire.
No.
You like the journey.
Yeah. I wish it were, if that were true, that I was done, then that means the world will have transcended.
Exactly.
And then I get to go, yoo-ha.
Indeed.
But EJ's book is important. And how to maximize the benefit that exists between identification with a biological machine, which is what he calls our physical body, and identification with that essential self. And so the whole book is an exploration about that and how to use that to your advantage rather than accepting purely the limitations of the machine, which are these human primates that have been evolving so that we can come down in here and do these things. And it's an interesting take on all of that. Just so you know, EJ's book is the Biological Machine is the first of a 3-part series called the Labyrinth series. The next one in its slightly beat up cover is called Life in the Labyrinth. And finish the first 4 before you go on to that one. And get me your reports. While I'm talking about EJ, I'll just mention again the American Book of the Dead. This is not required. It is, however, highly, highly recommended. And I'll have more to say about that one perhaps later. So that's what's required. Not the Life in the Labyrinth, not the ABD, but those first 4. Because that's going to give you a foundation of core knowledge that at some point I'm just going to start assuming that you have. Okay? And expecting you to demonstrate a proficiency with. So when I start talking about, oh, that behavior right there, that's your machine, tap into, I'm going to expect you to say, oh, yeah, that is a machine response. Let me pull into my essential self and let that drive again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to not expect to hear, what's a biological machine? I don't have a biological machine. I am my machine. That's what I don't want to hear. So, with a couple of exceptions, everyone who's a formal student in the school, who's been in here more than like 3 or 4 months, you should be done reading. And if you're not, it's time to kick it up and get it done and get those reports in so we can move on. I think you're recent enough. I don't expect you to be done. And there's one other individual who I know hasn't been around long enough to have gotten this reading done. And that's fine. They're on their schedule. Everybody else, whatever you've been driving you to procrastinate, well, just stop it. Okay? Let me see. Was there anything else I wanted to say tonight? Oh, yeah. Only another 8 pages worth. Yeah.
Do you want to know who's online?
Yes. That would be interesting. Then none of them are asking questions. Otherwise, you would have relayed questions.
Well, they're having a discussion. Okay, so Nina and Melody and Sarah and Maria,
Okay.
and if I've missed anybody who has identified themselves, I apologize. I think that's good.
Hi,
Okay.
everybody.
Hi, you guys.
And Sarah's got chills and a fever, so everybody's sending her
Oh,
positive
no.
energy.
Okay. Pause there.
Okay.
Sarah, no sugar, no dairy products, high doses of vitamin C. As long as you don't give yourself diarrhea, you can keep taking more vitamin C. You get diarrhea, back off. And something akin to a blend of echinacea and golden seal, and prove you're not better in 3 days. Okay? Continue. Who else?
So that's it. Like I said, that have identified.
Okay. Well, that's a good group.
And journal. Sarah says she's journaling almost every day. She's been good, and that. Let's see. We're gonna when you're done, Patricia, with Coyote's book, we need to get that to Nina.
Okay.
Okay? Will did check in this afternoon and said he had something going on. He wouldn't be able to catch it live, but he will watch it on Memorex.
Okay, and then Patty from San
Oh.
Ramon.
Hi, Patty. Part of our
Um,
San Ramon crew.
And her question would be, what are the titles of the 4 books? So just tell the 4 titles straight out.
Okay.
That,
1. Esoteric Orders and Their Work by Dion Fortune. 2. The Training and Work of an Initiate. Same author. 3. Teachings of a Toltec Survivor by Coyote the Blind. And 4, get ready for this one, The Human Biological Machine as a Transformational Apparatus by E.J. Gold. And now that you've broken your fingers trying to keep up with that, if you go to the akaduahealing.com website, somewhere on the homepage there's a link that says something like Institute of Toltec Shamanic Arts or Golden Eagle or something. I can't remember the name of that link. And that takes you over to the page, and there's that's for the shamanic work. The Golden Eagle Discourses section of the Institute of Toltec Shamanic Arts or ToltecShamanicArts.org website.
it's easier just to go there rather than find a link through
Okay.
the Kadua website.
Well, she probably has that.
But it is on the homepage.
Yeah. And when you get into that section, there's a link at the top that says library. And on that page, there's a section that those 4 books are listed on one side, and then there's a few others recommended books. I have a really long, like 3-page recommended reading list. So I only have a small representative sample on that webpage right now. That's a work for later this year, is to get the whole reading list up there. So anyway, that's another way you can get that. And if you still have trouble finding that, Patty, just zip us an email and I'll send you the link, and or we'll just send you the list of I'll cut and paste and you'll get the information.
And just remind everybody that Coyote's book is not in publication right now, but it should be within the next few months.
Yeah, within the next couple months, Coyote's book should be available to order and get a hard copy in your hand.
Everybody send him an email and say, "Oh, Coyote would really love to have a copy of your book."
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll have to pick. It's what's the Shikoko email address?
Hold on, let me figure it out.
She'll get that for you, and then we'll announce it. Because I don't want to send it to their personal email. They have their official. Their school is called Shikoko Shamanic Arts, where mine is the Institute of Toltec Shamanic Arts. So, oh yeah. I know where we need to go. So after you finish the 4 books and you get that in, and I know you've got this core knowledge that's your foundation for starting to work up the tree of life. There's a lot of directions that one might go to nurture the three core natures within us, as defined in the Toltec system, which are the dreamer, the stalker, and the warrior. Those have correlations to the Kabbalistic tree of life. And the Kabbalistic tree of life is what I consider to be the Rosetta Stone for translating information between spiritual systems. It works that way because it is the best representation we have for literally the structure of the universe. It applies to quantum physics and spirituality. It can be applied to cooking. It can be applied to architecture and construction. You name it. And if it's legitimate, it will resonate with the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life. So that is one of the primary other pieces I pull in because it's related to the Tarot, it's related to astrology, it's related to the study of the tree of life and Kabbalah itself, and the Toltec system is overlaid on that. And so when you look at the Kabbalistic tree of life, the three pillars correspond to the three natures, the dreamer, the stalker, and the warrior. And so you yourself need to be choosing activities as part of your personal practice that will help you develop those three natures so that they are all equally balanced and maximally or at least optimally strong. They could all be equally balanced and very, very weak, and that won't help you, at least not very far. You want them equally balanced and as strong as we can get them. If you're not sure how to develop your warrior nature, ask me. And I will give you any one of a number of ways to do that. If you're not sure how to develop your stalker nature and you haven't quite grokked the fact that I've on dozens of occasions have told you you need to be learning chess, ask me again and I will tell you that the best way to develop your stalker nature is to learn to play chess. Okay? There's a couple other strategy games like that work. There's a game called Go. It's a Chinese game or Japanese game. And then there's the one, I can't remember, it's got all those funny, it's kind of like dominoes, but I can't remember the name of it. It's
Mahjong? Yeah.
Mahjong. Mahjong is a good one. If you're better at that, or if you want to learn that one, that's probably actually harder to learn than chess. And a lot of people think chess is hard, but go try Mahjong. I stick with chess because, I learned that when I was very young. I was learning to play chess when I was about 6 or 7. And I didn't start trying to learn Mahjong until I was in my 30s somewhere. I haven't kept it up. It didn't resonate with me. Chess, I like. So, something like that, because it's going to teach you a certain rigor of thought and planning ahead and strategizing, which is what the stalker nature is all about. The good example of that is you take the small child to the beach and he sees a big flock of beautiful white seagulls sitting on the beach and he runs screaming at them because he wants to touch them and hug them and all that, and they, of course, scatter. And he's all disappointed. So you teach him to sit down, pull out the breadcrumbs. Just start throwing out breadcrumbs. And pretty soon there'll be so many seagulls flocking him that he's in danger of being eaten, right? And then the first time he gets the seagull to eat out of his hand, that's different, but that's the stalker's way of getting to know the seagulls rather than the direct, immature warrior's way of running straight at it. Dreamer. The best way to develop your dreamer's nature is by dreaming. With dreaming with an intent, gauging your progress, remembering your dreams, writing them down, and doing the right thing in the dream. I don't want to go into the story, but Yvonne had a great story. She got into a situation and she did the right thing. And it worked. Imagine that. So, yeah, dreaming. And you're going to have one of those three that is your most natural, strongest nature. It's probably really, really rare to have somebody born into a lifetime and be equally balanced and equally strong at a high level in all of them.
But isn't that the goal on one level is to be balanced within them, but obviously we're going to have one that's stronger.
Yeah, the goal is to get them balanced and strong. So wherever your strongest one is, let's say you're a dreamer. And you're a dreamer extraordinaire, you can imagine, you can vision, all this, you see all this stuff. But you can't plan far enough ahead to come in out of the rain. And you can't take action well enough to keep yourself fed. So your stalker and your warrior need to be boosted. So this is an example why, Dion in her books talks about whatever your natural tendency is, and she breaks down all the different systems of Illuminism in a little more, Western systematic way. And whichever one of the two major, they have it divided into two broad categories. Whichever one you have the strongest affinity for, the school makes you go work on the others. So if you're a good dreamer, it's time to kick up your work on your stalker and your warrior. If you're a natural warrior, you got to spend some time working on your dreamer and your stalker. That was my case.
Heads on pikes.
Heads on pikes is the national pastime of Scotland that I invented in several lifetimes. First with the Romans. Don't get me started. I'll try to stay off my Roman rants.
So absent heads.
Hadrian's Wall. Okay? We won the war, and Hadrian's Wall is the proof. What was your question?
Absent heads on pikes. Can you give us something that will help us to start to move more into that?
Into the warrior?
Mm-hmm.
Just do it.
Heads on pikes.
Do it.
Study martial arts.
Martial arts. Okay.
You want to learn warrior skills, study a martial art. There's not many teachers here in this geographic area. There's one school that emphasizes Taekwondo. Off and on, I hear rumors that there's a Qigong teacher around. And not me, but another one.
Can you recommend a good martial arts to start off with?
He's having some trouble there. Except for with him, when you're ready to do it.
There's the theory is, here's what I did. This is now 25, 30 years ago. I went through the usual left-brain nerd geek approach. I made a conscious decision I was going to learn martial arts. I went to the library, I got all the books, and I read about all the different kinds of martial arts, and based purely on the description, I said, that's the one I want to learn. Then I found out that the nearest instructor was over 50 miles away, which in LA traffic meant it wasn't going to happen. So then I did a different approach. What martial arts schools are there nearby that are practical to get to? And you're going to start with one of those.
Nina has offered I can share some martialists with the ladies.
Yay.
With a smiley face.
Thank you, Nina.
Nina.
Hey, Nina.
Go see Nina.
Yes.
She knows cool stuff.
She
In
does.
fact, she and I want to train together if we can find a moment in between our respective schedules where we can get together and do that.
That would be cool.
yeah. In terms of what I'm qualified to teach, I can teach a little bit of Tai Chi, I can teach a little bit of Qigong, and a lot of Okinawan karate.
I have a video and some instruction on how to do Tai Chi in a chair.
Oh.
Because, you know, I have problems with my sacrum and standing and doing it. And I've actually already done it with a yoga ball, sitting on a yoga ball. You know, you have to make some adaptations. But I think it's the important thing is to start going through the movements and get that discipline. And then you learn a lot from that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
The paired arts, not that purists would admit to this, but Tai Chi and Qigong both involve moving Qi and both involve building Qi. It's my opinion, after 20 plus years experience, that Qigong does a better job of building Qi and Tai Chi does a little better job of moving the energy. Both will do both functions. But that's kind of how they're related. Like I said, I grew up in Okinawan karate, and that's what my black belts are in. And the system that I know is extremely deadly and brutal. If it takes you longer than 3 seconds to kill somebody, you did it wrong. That's what a real martial art is. It's not about scoring points. It's not about a tournament. It's not about trophies. I will often recommend that if you're assessing a school, which here in our little town that may not make much sense because there's only one, but anywhere else, you walk into the lobby of the martial arts school. If you see a wall of trophies, walk out. They're going to teach you how to get trophies. They're not going to teach you how to save your life.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Okay.
There may be some exceptions to that, and I'm open to that possibility. But as a general rule, to get that wall full of trophies, you had to get all their students practicing a whole lot of stuff that's aimed at tournaments, not at saving your rear end on the street when somebody pulls out a baseball bat or a knife or a gun, or 3 people decide they're going to haul you into an alley and rape you. When that happens, you don't care about any of the skills you learned for trophies. You need the skills that will stop each person like that. And that means you have to get comfortable at maiming or killing someone, because it's you or them.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if there's more than one of them, you can't be nice. There's some arts out there, like Aikido is a very good joint locking type of thing where it's designed to subdue your opponent with a minimum force. It's very elegant. It's as peaceful as a martial art can be. And from a real street standpoint, that philosophy will get you killed in a hurry. Because if they are serious, and especially if there's more than one, and there usually will be, that's the other thing that needs to be recognized and acknowledged right up front, is you don't have time. And if that means you've got to gouge out eyes, or break necks, or break knees, that's what you do, because it's them, they're trying to kill you. So you have to respond in a way that will get them disabled as fast as possible. And if there's more than one, that usually means the first one probably needs to die. That's the mental shift that's at the extreme end of the scale of what it means to develop your warrior energy. On a less extreme standpoint, it means the ability to take action as appropriate. And that might take funny things. It might mean you're in a town meeting where they're trying to steal your water or put a pharmaceutical plant in that's going to dump waste into your water, whatever it is, and everybody's going along with it because they've all been paid off. And it might mean that your warrior action is standing up and you're the only one in the room with the guts to call the politicians on their BS. That's warrior skill. You could have dreamed up the idea to go learn. You could have completely accurately stalked the situation and analyzed everything there. But then it's time to stand up and say, no, and I will sign the petition. Everybody knows the story of when you're going to sign your name, like your formal signature on a contract or a form, whatever. You know what we have the nickname for your autograph is, right?
John Hancock.
It's your John Hancock. I knew you would know that. Why do we call it a John Hancock?
Because he signed the Constitution,
Before that, what came?
Bill of Rights.
No, that came after.
Declaration.
The
of
Declaration of Independence. Who was the first person to sign it?
John Hancock.
John Hancock
Big and bold.
was John Hancock, exactly, was the president of the Continental Congress that approved the Declaration of Independence. And he was the first one to sign it. He put it right in the middle in letters big enough that fat King George could read it without his spectacles. John Hancock. And you look at the photographs of the original, which are widely available. Everybody else's signature is like half the size, right?
That
He
was
took a stand, right? He took a stand and said, "This is the right thing to do. King George is a tyrant. We need to rebel." They went through months of debate, writing it down. They took Thomas Jefferson's draft, refined it. Finally, they got it to the point where they agreed. And he wrote his John Hancock on it. And then his famous quote was, "All right, every one of you get up here and hurry and sign this thing. Because if the British break down the door right now, mine's still the only name on it. So sign it." You got to be able to take that stand. That's a warrior skill. You get an idea, you analyze the heck out of it, and then it's time. Right now, in this world, in this planet, is time. It's time to act. It's time to go home and get your reading done and write that report and then go on to what's next. It's time to contact Nina and start learning her version of martial arts.
The Women's Warrior Workout.
Good.
I used to have a video like that.
Now I want to go hit something. I'm going to have to get my swords out tomorrow and go practice. That's all there is to it.
Like to see.
Off with the head! Look out, trees.
So after that, you want to develop your dreamer, your stalker, and your warrior. Right? The other thing that is emphasized in this Toltec lineage that I've talked about before are the four magics. I'm not going to tell you what you do for each one of those four magics. I am going to tell you that you will not be complete and you will not attain beyond a certain level unless you do. You've got to get your Dreamer, Stalker, Warrior balance. You've got to get your 4 magics balanced.
Can you tell us what the 4 magics are,
Again,
please?
He just told you he's not going to tell you what they are.
No,
No, I know.
Not explain
I-
them, maybe, but just like
but you are aware, you've heard me say that before, and you're aware that I've explained it before.
I've heard you say it before.
Okay, go check your notes. White magic is any activity of devotion and purity. Black magic can be related to any of the specific types of rituals that can be done at night. Martial arts would fall into that category. Any of the work you do to confront and subdue your shadow self would fall into that category. Defense against the dark arts, to use the Harry Potter term, would fall into that category, because that's where our adversaries live. And that's what they will be using against us, and are, as some of you know. And so you have to learn enough of their methods that they won't work on you. And you have to be willing to go there and not get sucked in. Green magic is anything pertaining to nature and healing. So the plant medicine that I teach, the plant spirit medicine, the Chinese herbology, the Western herbology, the Native American herbology, anything like that, homeopathy, acupuncture, Akadu energy healing, would all fall under the green magics. And the red magics is anything pertaining to your bloodline. So for women, childbearing is red magic. Anything pertaining to the monthly cycles, learning to work in harmony with the moon. Anything pertaining to your genetic or spiritual lineage, your bloodline. So it's a bloodline magic.
ancestor,
Say again?
ancestry.
Yeah, your ancestry work, your, I'm a Celt and a Viking. So when I study Norse mythology and Celtic mythology and learn some of those techniques as an augment to what I do, that would constitute red magic. Everything in the Toltec work, because I've been in this lineage before, would constitute red magic for me. It doesn't just mean red path, meaning the Native American traditional path, because some tribes of Native Americans had skin with a reddish tone. That's not what it means. It means that bloodline, that deep connection, that DNA that resonates together. The fact that every Scotsman, everyone who has probably an ounce of Scottish blood, the first time they hear bagpipes, rapture, total rapture. I couldn't have been more than 6 years old, maybe 7. And we were at a parade in my hometown. And the bagpipe band went by, playing a song that I now know is Scotland the Brave, which is the unofficial national anthem of Scotland. And I was enthralled. I had no reason, other than my Scottish blood, why I should have been so enthralled. But I was.
Red magic.
Red magic. They stopped that song, started playing something else, perfectly good song. I'm like, Dad, go make him play the other song.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it's like, no, I can't do that. Sure you can. You're Dad. You can do everything. Can't do that. So I had to follow the band until they played it again. It was like halfway through the town before they got to that song. Yeah. That's an example of red magic. It's that Celtic blood. Heads on pikes.
Or when you go somewhere and you just know that you.
Yeah.
I've been here before.
Yeah.
You know,
Norse. I had.
or I'm home.
We were on the ferry boat between Scotland and the Orkney Islands, and I started tapping into one of my Viking lives, where I had sailed that same route. Yeah. Red magic. So I can't tell you what to do in each of those four, but I can tell you that to get past a certain level, you need that balance. You absolutely need that balance. You need your dreamer, stalker, warrior balance. You need your four magics balanced. You need to develop a better understanding of your consciousness. Now, this is moving into another aspect of the Toltec work. Those of you who've completed the level 4 class, and you know who you are, congratulations, by the way, again. You did great. You have at your disposal a wide array of tools that help develop some of your higher natures. We've freed up a lot of your trapped energy. We've helped you develop your etheric body, your astral body, and taught you a number of things to do with that. That is intended to be a starting point, not an end point. You need to be doing those every day. For those of you who are not yet level 4, keep going. The access to the highest levels of consciousness work for changing the world are life-changing. Going through this process of getting your level 3, then getting your level 4, are life-changing, and you don't have to only use that on a Toltec path or even a shamanic path. The skills are, this is pure physics. This is the physics of the planes, the higher planes. Dozens of systems out there will have techniques to try and teach you how to use your etheric body or your astral body or astral traveler or something akin to that. It's my opinion, after having tried many other systems before I found the Toltec, that this one just works better. It's more powerful.
It's a quantum jump.
Yeah, it's a quantum leap above anything else I ever found. Is it possible there are things I never found? Yeah, I'm sure there are. Could some of them be as good? Maybe. Are they better? I doubt it.
You're not going to get an immediate response from the other
No,
ones.
when you go up these levels with the Akadwa and this Toltec training, it's immediate. There's no guesswork.
Absolutely.
I taught once an Akadwa level 1 class it was a class that was primarily being taught to one Chinese family. And some of them were in their 70s and had been doing Qigong all their lives, from probably age 5 on up. And so they knew what their energy was. So I started the class a little different. I had them do one of their Qigong forms. Okay, activate that, feel the energy. Then we did the Akadwa transmissions. Now do your Qigong form. Their eyes got big. Everybody was smiling. And some of the people only spoke Chinese, which I don't speak. And so there was a translator, but the gist of it was they were blown away, amazed at how much stronger their Qigong was immediately. It's instant. So you're going to want to keep pushing through those exercises. You should be doing something from that class every day. And there's the one I told you about at the class that you should be doing at least once a week. And obviously, if you take every class and every exercise and you add them all up, you've probably got about 40 hours a day of material that you could potentially use. As the rocket scientist that I am, I know that you can't put 40 hours of material in a 24-hour bag. So you have to pick and prioritize. I don't do that for you. You do that for you. You do that for you. You're the one who has to pick what is your white magic? What is your red, green, black magics? What are you going to do to build your dream? You want to do Mahjong instead of chess? Fine. I don't play Mahjong. You'd probably win. Play chess, I'll get you.
Bet money.
I like Mahjong.
Bet money.
So, something like that. Okay? Martial arts, fabulous for learning the warrior skills. And that doesn't mean you have to kill everybody. But it changes you in a way that because you know you could, if you had to, the energy field you give off is different.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad guys show up, not that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on dream time.
Not that one, not her, not her, not her. No, we're not worth it. So those are the things you have to do. Beyond that, there's a lot of study of peripheral material that will help. If you start looking at EJ's blogs and his daily show in the morning at 6:30, he goes through all kinds of exercises that combine a lot of these skills. The painting the rocks, which I'm still trying to fully. I have a chess set partially done, so I'm getting there.
Did you get the pause pens yet?
Not yet. That's my problem. The Posca pens.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna order them tomorrow.
Okay.
So, depending on where you are at and your ability to put your personal practice together to develop all these skills, if you get stuck or you lack an idea, come talk to me, and I will help. Sometimes it might be to go read a specific book and implement knowledge. I might point you to a specific sephira or pathway on the Tree of Life to go study this and then apply it. This is the book I recommend as a starting point out of any of the dozens, if not hundreds, of books available on the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. That's the one that I like as the best starting point after having gone through a couple of dozen others. You know, when you stumble, the very first book you stumble onto is Crowley's, and then you can't make heads or tails of it. You go, what the heck is this? And then eventually you find something a little more rudimentary, and oh, okay, now I can use it. Now I pick up Crowley and go, oh yeah, where's that? And I use it as a reference, which is how it's intended to be. It's not as an instruction manual, which I needed at the beginning. Dion Fortune, the Mystical Kabbalah, is volume 1 of what was intended once upon a time to be a 2-volume set. This one talks about all the spheres and the pillars and the triads and the 4 worlds. The next book was going to be the 22 Paths. And that rude woman died before she could write it and publish it. Can you believe that? A major piece of work she left undone? She probably has to come back and rewrite it now. I can't believe she did that. But unfortunately, she didn't get it written. Um, this is one that I found. You can buy a hard copy. I've never found a good price on a hard copy. But A Garden of Pomegranates by Israel Regardie is probably next. Where's that other one? Oh, I loaned it to you. It's in the other room. There's another one by, I think his name is Robert Wang, called The Kabbalistic Tarot. And the Practical Kabbalah Guidebook by C.J.M. Hopkin, The Mystical Kabbalah by Dion Fortune, A Garden of Pomegranates by Israel Regardie, and a Kabbalistic Tarot by Robert Wang are the 4 books that I use as references most frequently for the nature of the work I'm doing.
I know what book Patricia's gonna buy.
The Kabbalistic Tarot.
Mm-hmm.
It's an excellent book. When I found that, I went, "Holy Moses, Indy! Where did this book? Why was this being hidden from me all these years?" Yeah, that was one of those aha moments for sure. Yeah. These 4 books I just mentioned are going to be the recommended reading for the class I'll be teaching probably starting in April on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. I'm not sure which day of the week that will be offered. It will be offered weekly. It's probably going to be at no charge or by donation because it's important information. And it's going to be a long-term ongoing thing. I'm envisioning a minimum of 3 months for this course to get through the material.
Cool.
Question?
Didn't we talk about having a weekend or a weekday or weekend course that may have a nominal fee, but that then you would be making it part of your discussion after that?
Maybe part of the discussion. See, there's our problem is, just to be perfectly blunt about it, there's only 7 days in a week. And there's only 24 hours on each day.
We have no limits.
And what I am requiring of the universe is I need about 10 days in a week and 30 hours in a day to get everything done I need to do at the same time as everybody else only gets 24 hours and 7 days. That's my requirement. So we're having trouble. How do we fit all the materials that I feel driven to get out there, and still do everything else I have to do in order to have a roof over my head and eat food, which I like. So my strong preference.
Just fast.
Say again?
Just fast.
Right?
Well, I think we're probably going to go with sleep.
There you go.
It's overrated anyway, and I wake up at 2 and 3 and 4 every day anyway. And I get up and I write the dream down. I go back to bed. Oh wait, there's another one. And
You two must be interested in the middle of the night. What are you doing? Writing.
no, I usually get up and come out here because I don't like disturbing him. So
That's very kind.
Aw.
what I really want is I want to pick one day per week and do the Tree of Life class in an evening.
Okay.
And it's looking like, given the rest of my schedule, that the only day that might work is Fridays, which is typically not the most fun day for a lot of people. That's the end of the week. If they're going to be traveling on the weekend, which may happen to me sometimes, I need to be traveling on Friday to get to be somewhere by Saturday morning. It happens. But right now, that still looks like the best time.
Like a Friday night.
Friday evening.
And you're gonna videotape this, like for Maria, and I know Nina travels a lot.
Yeah. So that's kind of the plan. And we've got until April to get it figured out. Sometime maybe later this week, Bonnie and I and one or two other people may be having our big scheduling conference and trying to figure out how are we going to do some of these things. So after that, if you want to learn more about the dreaming, I can't recommend Coyote's book, The Golden Flower, enough. This one is now, I believe, being printed and distributed by EJ's publishing company. This is one of the original numbered copies that was released, The Golden Flower.
Wow, you got a hard copy.
Yeah, this is a hard copy. And this book, just to give you a hint, The Golden Flower is a place. And you know you're making progress when you get to that place. So that one is good. One of the techniques that I used in the level 4 class came from this book, The Inner Guide Meditation. And I told you if you wanted to look at it, you can. So I'm going to leave that here
I want to look at it.
to be looked at. Strongly recommended reading for some of this very specific work we're doing inside the school over the going to be happening on an ongoing basis is I'm recommending everybody read the Popol Vuh.
I think I came in the mail today, I think.
This is not the only translation available, but it is a very good one.
And there's all kinds of Popol Vuh that Lease Aid Books had, so if you want that one.
Yeah, do you have the author,
Dennis
translation
Taylor.
that you recommended?
This is one that I had found at a used bookstore and had. And then when Coyote a few years back did his Popol Vuh class, he had a couple other these that he recommended. I'll have to get a hold of him. And there's a couple other translations from the Mayan into Spanish or the Mayan into English or from the Mayan to Spanish into English. And I'll see which ones he recommends. He said this one was good, but it's not his favorite. Of course, his favorite is only available in Spanish, which helps me not very much. Not being a Spanish speaker beyond ordering food in restaurants and not getting lost when I was traveling around Baja. Which I managed to successfully do. I was almost up to the point of being fully conversational in Spanish by the time I got back from that trip. It was about a 2-week trip. And then, of course, I haven't been back since, so I don't speak Spanish much.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I can get by in restaurants.
Let's all go to the Pyramid of the Sun.
Yeah, that's on the list, that trip. So there's a lot of other places. I pulled some other things out. I recommend this author, Nigel Davies. This was printed called The Toltecs Until the Fall of Tula.
Is that for dreaming?
No, that's just for general Toltec knowledge. It's a more academic book. It was written at that transition before the deep suppression of the Toltec history had gone into full swing. So his style is such that he does talk about different interpretations. None of it is getting into the esoteric work. You know, like why is Tula called the place of reeds and why is that where the Toltecs gathered? You all know that. I'm not going to talk about it here. But there's obviously higher level meanings for all of that. Just as I was about to say, I'm not going to show any more books. I saw the other stack and I go, yeah, I am.
You book tease.
Atlantis, the Antediluvian World by Ignatius Donnelly is required reading if you want to know the true history of what is available out there regarding the legitimacy of Atlantis. If you haven't read that, you haven't even begun to analyze the true history of the earth. So
That's by Ignatius
Ignatius Donnelly.
Donnelly.
And yes, it's the same Ignatius Donnelly who was a congressman from Minnesota back in the 1860s. Okay, spent 8 years in Congress. I'm sure you're more familiar with him as a congressman, but this is how I happen to be.
Okay then.
Joseph Campbell, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. If you want to understand mythology and archetypes of the Tarot, the Kabbalah, astrology, if you really want to understand that and really expand your understanding of the archetypes, go read Joseph Campbell. It's the hero story. You want to know why everybody loved the original Star Wars movie and everybody mostly hates the follow-ons? It's because the original was written specifically in keeping with the hero's story, the hero's journey, and the modern ones are just garbage. That's why. So there's a lot out there that you could go into if you're called in that direction. I've tried to present a represented sample of things that have the juice in them. I'm not showing you things that are a waste of time. But I don't expect anybody to go read all of these. Read whichever ones of these might call to you, and then when you're reading those, you'll be called somewhere else. So follow those synchronicities, follow those promptings, follow your inner guide, follow your angel.
I had posted something today, and now that you speak of angels, comes from one extreme aspect of my spectrum of my white magic, and yet it seemed so appropriate for anyone on a spiritual path. It's from President Nelson, if you don't mind me reading it.
Go ahead.
It says, if you will sincerely and persistently do the spiritual work needed to develop the crucial spiritual skill of learning how to hear the whisperings of the Holy Ghost, you will have all the direction you will ever need in your life.
That's beautiful.
That's what we mean from a slightly different perspective when we talk about knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel. Same words, same concept, different systems. So I've thrown a lot at you tonight, and my hope is twofold primarily. One is some of it sticks, and that you will do something with it. And hopefully that something is in keeping with your own higher true will. And anything less than that is really a waste of time. That's part of the overt message of all this is if you're not working towards your true will, you're wasting time. That doesn't mean you don't get to have fun. Fun induces brainwave frequencies that are very healing and very relaxing. But if you're going to have fun, do it deliberately and consciously. And say, okay, I require an afternoon of fun frequencies, so I'm going to choose something that's fun and go do that for no other purpose than you're rejuvenating your brain.
How cool is that? Fun with intention.
Right?
That's really cool.
Yeah. Don't do it blindly.
Or running away from something.
And
Yeah.
don't do it to run away from something. Oh, that's too stressful. I have to go to the mall. Oh, that's too stressful. I'm going to go chill out with a movie.
Or drink.
Or drink alcohol or whatever. Right. You fill in the blank. Do it with intent.
Mm-hmm.
I am specifically going to ride my sled at Bunny Flats because it'll be fun.
I'll wear a helmet. No.
Wear your helmet. Don't crash on the rocks.
Just stay on the beaten track. You can see it launching off the mountain.
Well, especially at Bunny Flat, where they sometimes have those 15 or 20-foot high snow walls.
Well, wear your red shirt so they can see you when you're in the snow.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't want to come riding your sled down off and go, hoping you make it clear across that parking lot and end up splattered on the side of somebody's RV.
Yeah. Not
Or you
good.
could get on the icy road and just go down the road like a bobsled.
Well, you could do that. Of course, I've actually been on the road driving up the mountain this summer and ran into a whole herd of longboard skateboarders who were doing that,
Yeah.
getting really mad at me for driving my automobile on their skateboard track.
Oh, no.
And I didn't move.
Hi to Serenity.
Hi, Serenity.
Take
Oh,
good
and
care of
Serenity?
your mom.
Yeah, take good care of your mom, one. And serenity number 2 is you should be journaling too. And it doesn't just have to be writing boring words. It can be artwork and pictures. And you could use color and ink and pencils and paint and everything.
Get a unicorn journal book.
You can journal. And then that way you and your mom can journal together. And if she's forgetting, you can say, Mom, did you journal today? I
You
did.
better be careful.
That was done with intent.
Sarah's gonna get you.
So, no, Sarah just said she's doing good. That was for serenity. That was just all for serenity. You need to go where you're led with the higher intent to balance your dreamer, stalker, warrior, and your use of the 4 magics. Those of you who took the level 4 have more powerful tools for doing that. Those of you who have not yet gotten the level 4, use the best skills you have right now and do this work the best you can. And if you require assistance, then contact us. I'd be happy to have a phone call or answer an email if it's easily answered in an email. And if it's not, I'll say, hey, that's complicated. Let's just talk on the phone. Any questions? It's time to kick it up a notch. That's what this is about. And I think next time we're going to start doing something.
Uh-oh.
Next week. We're going to do something. Any questions online? Any questions here in the room or on the higher planes? Okay. If not, we will proceed to terminate transmission. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in.
Can I see the Atlantis book and the Joseph Campbell book?
Sure. Are we off?
Hang on.